Hello, Facebook Live. We are here tonight with Megan Julian of Julian Events. Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to just kind of chit chat while we wait for people to jump on. And let's see, I've got somebody telling me we have no sound. Can we test that on the Facebook side there? Okay, we'll just keep talking and let our behind the scenes people figure that out, hopefully. So just to kind of preface this a little bit, to kind of share a little bit about how I met Megan. I had never worked with her before as a planner, but she did our last big reveal on the recommendation of another vendor, and she was amazing. She just completely took over the venue that she was participating in, and I was so impressed with what she brought to the table design-wise and how she presented in helping that be a really collaborative effort. And so I
just saw that coming.
So I'm going to be really great at lip reading after tonight's video. So we obviously haven't figured out the audio yet. Is anybody else that's watching? Let's see. Figuring out sound. Hold, please. Hey, Jason, what's your thought?
I think it sounds like they're working on it.
No, I typed that. Why?
Because it would have to be something, or it wouldn't be.
Let's see.
Aw, thank you. Oh, one person has sound.
Caitlin, can you hear both of us?
Caitlin, are you able to hear me? Or is it just one?
Ashley can't hear either of us. Jason can't hear either of us. Ashley can't hear either of us.
I hear that. All right, so how about now?
I mean, okay, so maybe Ashley just needs to turn her sound up.
I would love that. That would be hysterical.
Oh.
That's not the case for Ashley.
Okay, well, we've here now. Okay, we're going to keep going because obviously we're getting through to Facebook Live. Ashley needed to turn her volume on. Awesome. Okay. Oh goodness. Okay. Well, great way to start off the call with a laugh. So anyway, just to kind of finish the conversation about how I met Megan. So was so impressed with how she had handled that first big reveal that we had done. And I really enjoyed working with her. And so I wanted to we didn't really even have a chance to really get to know each other much during that process. And so I wanted to bring her on here and share what I have found out kind of behind the scenes with some of you all, because she really has a very fascinating story. So again, welcome. And for those of you that are just now joining us, please say hello in the comments below so that we know you're here. And please feel free to jump on and ask some questions, whether it's of myself or Megan. That's why we're here. We just want to get to know everybody. So Megan, tell us a little bit about your background, because you're not originally from Kansas City.
No, I am not actually. I've lived a few different places. My family moved a few times for corporate moves. So I most recently moved from Pennsylvania, where I was living with my husband while he was a resident physician. So we just moved here about 2 years ago. Before that, I had lived in New Jersey. I've lived in Minnesota. I was actually born in Boston. So I've lived in a few different places. I really kind of consider Minnesota a place where I grew up. That's where my parents live now. And then Pennsylvania is where all of my in-laws are from. We have a huge extended family there, and we've met a lot of really wonderful friends. But Kansas City is an incredible place to live. This is our home. We moved here with the intention of living here forever, and have some family here as well. So it's been a joy to be here in Kansas City.
Yeah. And so it was an interesting story of where you started to how you got to here and how you became a wedding planner. So kind of tell us some of your background, because this isn't what you've always done.
No, I've actually done a few different things. I really went to school and started with the intention of going into theater production. I really enjoyed it. And I had this moment where I realized I was spending a lot of time in a dark theater, and it wasn't something I really wanted for my life. I enjoyed the work, and I enjoyed producing something tangible. I enjoyed the design aspect, but the lifestyle was just not something I really wanted. So with some really excellent advice from my family, I switched to communications as a degree. And it turns out that the secret sauce for wedding planner is half technical production and half communication. So it worked out perfect. But after that, I really had an eclectic range of jobs. My most recent, sort of full-time occupation was as a project manager, which, anyone who's has some experience in that field will tell you it's the exact same job. It's just a different subject matter. Launching software, again, was not something that made my heart sing the same way that wedding planning does, but I love the logistical aspect. Again, producing something tangible, working with people to give them something they can use and enjoy, is really fulfilling. And so it was a great use of my skill set, but not really what I wanted to do, which was wedding planning.
Yeah. And that really shows, like what I was saying in the work. When you told me that you had been a project manager in your previous life, I went, oh yeah, that fits. Because that definitely came through, and that's a compliment. So
no, I appreciate it.
Tell me too, it's been an interesting journey for you and your husband. Tell us a little bit about that relationship and what he does and how that partially landed you in Kansas City.
Yeah. Oh, that was, yeah, it's a lifestyle, and anyone who's been part of this particular lifestyle will understand. So my husband's a physician, and that is a journey. It is a multi-step journey that is just kind of all-consuming at certain parts of your life. So I met my husband in college long before he even took his entrance exam. So it's kind of been an interesting journey. So he's gone to medical school and then to residency, and now his full-time position here in Kansas City. He works both at Children's Mercy and at Truman. So that's kind of required a couple of moves and, a little bit of patience on my part for the opportunity. We've spent a lot of time really focusing on his career and making sure he has what he needs to be successful. And it's been incredible to be a part of and to watch. And now sort of has been the opportunity where, now he's kind of launched into his career, and I get to focus a little more on providing services to brides and doing that part of my life. So it's been a nice transition and a really worthwhile one. It's incredible to watch that journey.
Yeah. Well, and we talked the other night about how it's so interesting as entrepreneurs and for those who aren't in the industry to kind of have a behind the scenes perspective of that the two of you, it has been so beneficial that you both have kind of chaotic schedules, because a lot of times for those of us that have been in the industry and our partner is kind of a 9-to-5er, it makes it tough. And so you and I talked about how that's been kind of a blessing. Kind of speak to that for a second.
It actually is, which sounds kind of crazy, but having a partner that understands that your job is not 9 to 5. It's actually a little bit 24/7, 365. So sometimes we're having dates on Tuesday at lunch, which honestly is kind of fun because we get to go to restaurants without huge lines. We're paying lunch prices, which is a benefit. But being able to really come home and work with somebody who understands a job that's really a lifestyle is a huge, huge blessing. I think, sometimes with my friends and my family that work 9 to 5, it's really hard for them to understand that I won't be able to make your wedding if you didn't give me, 2 years notice, or, I'm not free on a Saturday to go to the movies. And it's hard to foster those relationships sometimes when time is such a commodity. But with a partner that has a rotating schedule, there's a lot of grace and a lot of understanding, and a lot of actually simpatico there that, with our rotating schedules, we do land on days that we have free together, and it's usually midweek. But I will take any time, I can get with my partner, but it's nice to have somebody that understands the rigors of that lifestyle.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back because you had told me a story about it from your youth, about getting into wedding planning, and that had been something that had been in the back of your heart for a very long time. And you have to share that story because it's so adorable.
I do. I hope my dad has tuned in, and I don't know that he has, but I'll have to, share the story with him. I can't remember if it was like maybe my 9th birthday or my 10th birthday. I'll have to ask him what year that was. Maybe even 11th. I may have been almost a preteen when this happened. But I wanted to host a bear wedding. My bear, my teddy bear, my friend's teddy bear were going to get married. And the whole birthday party, I used it as an opportunity to plan this wedding. And again, it wasn't really like I wanted, this birthday party about me. I wanted to plan this wedding. I even forced my dad to make a tiered birthday cake. And he did such a great job. He bought like the candy letters to, put on the cake, and it turned out beautiful. My dad's an incredible cook, so he was totally up to the challenge. But I was a little bossy and insisted that we had this. We had the big pink Barbie limo that they got away on. There were rose petals. I mean, it was a production. And so sometimes when I look back in retrospect, I think that this career path was on my heart for a very long time, that this was something I really enjoyed. Even the experience of watching 2 bears get married was very, touching, and I loved it. And the experience of planning and executing this event, even at 11 years old, was something that just made me feel fulfilled and complete and enjoyed. So it's kind of a funny thing to look back on, but I think it's always been there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a fun story. Okay, so let's see. Some of the other things that we had kind of touched on were the hobbies that you have outside of weddings, which of course, we always want to make sure that everybody knows that you're a planner, and we can speak to that a little bit and kind of what your philosophy is as a planner. But part of what we're really trying to do with Thursday Night Live is to help people get a perspective of who you are as a person. So kind of tell us some of the things that you do hobby-wise outside of weddings.
Yes, we are people outside of weddings, even though it is such a big part of our lives. There are a few things I would definitely say, and I don't know that we talked about this the other night. I'm a really unashamed sci-fi fan. So I love a lot of sci-fi shows, and I'm non-denominational in that world. So I love both Star Wars and Star Trek, and I'm very familiar with both. My husband and I watched Game of Thrones together. True Blood back in the day, I would love to see that have come back. So we do watch a lot of that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that whole genre. I'm sad I missed Comic-Con a little bit this year. Love comic book movies. But the other real part that I would consider more of a lifestyle than a hobby is being kind of an experience collector. Really, myself and my husband and my family really love to get out and have experiences. We love to travel, go see live music, see what there is to offer, in any given city. So when we travel, we try and get really down into what are the local restaurants? What are the local experiences? Where do people who live there frequent? What are the things to see and experience and enjoy in each particular place? So, in Florence, we went to see a leather factory because that's what they produce there. And that was really important to us. We've gone, my husband used to live in New Orleans. So we really have some haunts there that are just local, hole in the walls that you would pass by on the street as a tourist. We've done that in other countries. We just went to London this past winter and Scotland, and we asked friends who'd lived there, where do you eat? Where do you go to drink? What are the things to see and experience? This is another, shout out to my dad. He raised us with this concept of a life bag, and your job as a human being and his job as my parent was to fill this life bag for you and help you understand, at the end of the day, what you have are your memories and your experiences, and that's the sum total of kind of who we are. And I think it influences us and helps us develop as people. So as an adult, it's kind of translated into this experience-seeking hobby where we want to see it and do it and feel it and smell it and experience it all. So I don't know if that's more of a lifestyle than a hobby, but it's what we like to spend our free time doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I had asked you the question the other night of telling me if there was one trip that you had taken that had really impacted your life, and share that story with us.
I think this is going to be true for a lot of people who've traveled or who've had this experience. I went with my husband before he was my husband. We were just dating, had gone to Belize on this medical mission trip that was hosted by our university. And having the experience of seeing down in the day-to-day how other people live and what their experience is, and seeing people line up the day before you were going to be there just to get a toothbrush. We had a couple of doctors, students that were on, sort of the medical education path, nurses, and then, my poor role just trying to speak a little bit of Spanish to, understand triage and help any way I could. But watching these people get whatever help they could and what is available to them in another country is really life-changing. It reminds you not only how fortunate we are, but how ridiculous some of the things that frustrate us in our daily life. Everybody knows this, hashtag first world problems, but until you go and you experience it, I've heard my sister and her husband went to Rwanda a couple of years ago, and they just cannot say enough about this experience, and that everyone should have it that lives the lifestyle that we live, to understand that the rest of the world doesn't live the way that we do, the opportunities that we have, and even just being able to go to the Walgreens to get Tylenol. People would line up to get that kind of stuff in Belize because they don't have access to it. Or, knowing that they have to take 2 days out of their life to go to the hospital and maybe wait a month to get an x-ray because there's a line. It just changes the way you experience things back here in the States. And I don't always remember it every day. And that breaks my heart that I'm not selfish, but getting to have that in the back of your mind that you've seen it and what this is like just helps your understanding of your place in the world. I hope that made sense.
Do you feel like that's had an impact on how you interact with your clients as a wedding planner?
Oh, I do, for sure. Weddings, it's hard because for clients and, even for me sometimes, it feels so big and important, and it is. But it helps kind of remember that this is a celebration and this is a special thing that we get to experience, and that it's a celebration of a commitment that you're making in your life. And while it's important and we want it to go well and logistically it's important, that there's so many other things that are important. The relationship, the marriage, those are things that you're going to have long after the wedding day is gone. And we want the wedding day to be a great experience for your guests. But at the end of the day, if there's a certain, cake that we can't get, or a flower that we can't get, or we missed our favorite DJ because we didn't book in time, these are relatively small things in the vast scheme of the experience of your life. And we want it to be memorable, but remembering how special it is that we get to host a wedding and that we get to celebrate a wedding helps keep things in perspective as we're planning.
Yeah, that's so very true. So, and there were a couple of other things that you shared with me about activities that you've done in your past that blew me away. And definitely I can see now that you've shared how they have come out in your personality as a wedding planner. Go ahead and tell us about your rugby days.
Oh, yeah. So I have a couple of things that are like my 2 truths and a lie go-tos. So my husband and I both played rugby in college. That's one of the things that kind of bonded us when we first met. But rugby is one of those things that helps contribute to this feeling of fearlessness as you go forward in your life. There's so many things. Just this past weekend, I was able to go back and meet with actually my rugby coach. He was at this wedding that I did last weekend. And we talked about how so many things in life are like the first hit in rugby. So anyone who's ever played this game, or even football, this might be the same experience. When you're there and you're anxious and you're ready to receive the first hit, rugby's a tough game. And when that ball gets kicked off, you're waiting for somebody to hit you. It's just the nature of the game. And once you get that first hit, you stand back up off the pitch and you dust yourself off and you get back in the game. And after that, every hit you take after that is so much easier and so much more comfortable. So when you're getting ready to plan a wedding, you're waiting for that moment where they go down the aisle, like the first hit in rugby. You're a little anxious. You're waiting for them to get down the aisle. And once they do, then you can really get ready and enjoy and take the rest of the hits kind of as they come. So many things in life are like that. The ability to be part of a team. Rugby's so social. So you've heard people probably refer to it as a drinking game with a rugby problem. We've heard those things before, but really what that equates to is it's social. At the end of a rugby match, both sides and the refs and the coaches, everybody goes to what's called a drink up afterwards, where it's like a party. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. It doesn't matter what team you're on. Everybody gets together and has a drink. So there's so much that you can borrow from that game in the experience of your life that really prepares you to be a little confident, be a little fearless, and enjoy the process of being on a team.
Yeah, that's great. And then you were a volunteer firefighter.
I was. So where I went to high school, as a senior, you're required to do some kind of volunteer project. So instead of just kind of begging off and enjoying, your senior year in your classes, they want you to get X number of community service hours. And it could be anything that you wanted to do. And I kind of said, all right, I want to do something different. So I signed up for my volunteer fire department and really got to, and enjoy the experience is not the right term, kind of immerse in this experience. Something that's very physically and emotionally demanding. Again, very much team aspect. Everybody has to work together. And the experience of going to a fire academy. So in New Jersey, where I was living at the time, whether you're a volunteer or you're a career firefighter, everybody gets the same training, which I think is really invaluable. And you get to experience, live fire drills. You get to experience really trusting other people with essentially your life and the experience of being there for other people in a time that is their biggest crisis and their most chaotic. You come onto a scene where somebody's just been in a car accident and you're their lifeline. You have to, kind of snap right into action and do what you need to do and rely on your training to get this person to safety and get them off to, the people like my husband who will then make sure that they're getting the care that they need. So that was an experience. And the other part of that experience that I really learned that I think everybody can take away from that is that there's a part and a role for everybody to play on a team. What people don't realize about, firefighters, it attracts a lot of guys that think that it's physical, and it is physical. And so you get this team of really large, really capable, mostly men. When I was doing it, there's a lot more women in the fire service now. And they can't get into a car that's been smashed. You need somebody with some narrow shoulders that can get in and, hold what's called hold C-spine, like hold the neck of the person in the car while people are cutting them out. In confined space rescue, you need someone with narrow shoulders and a small frame to be able to get through. I weighed about 90 pounds. So there were certain things that I could do that my colleagues couldn't. The weight of a person on a roof that, may be ready to collapse. You need everybody on that team to be a part of that. Where you are on a live hose line makes a huge difference. The person on the nozzle is actually your lightest person and your person who kind of knows what they need to do logistically, and you've got the bigger people behind you. So it helps get some perspective and helps you understand that there is a role for every person on every team, and that the more diverse your team, the more successful that you're going to be. And it's the same with project management. Everybody with the same perspective really cripples a team. And I don't know if I shared this one with you. We were talking about some of these, anecdotes. The one that we use in project management all the time is Americans spent millions and millions and millions of dollars developing a pen that would write in space. When approached with the same challenge, the Russians used a pencil. So I kind of think of that too with, if you've got this diverse team of people who think about things and approach a problem differently, like when we're hosting a wedding, the photographer is going to have a different perspective, then the caterer is going to have a different perspective, but it all works together to produce an event that is well executed and well planned. So it makes a huge difference, that team.
Yeah. Well, I love that. so much of your background, plays together as pieces that help you work directly under pressure and prepare for everything to work flawlessly. And then when it doesn't, you are prepared to be that pressure person who is the relief valve and, protects the client from things that inevitably things will go wrong on the wedding day. And that your background also shows that you do that from a place of compassion and of genuine heart. And I think that just really shows through in what you do. So, and then what to that end, as far as just making choices along the way and speaking to the fact that this is not, weddings are, of course, something that we all value highly. I've been in the wedding industry for 23 years. And but you had mentioned a book. I asked you about a book, and it was a book that you said you had read recently about decision making, and you had found that really interesting. What was that about?
There's so I go to Life Church here in Overland Park, and it's regardless of how you feel about your religion or your faith or what you believe. This has played a role in my particular life. And this book actually was very pragmatic. So it's by Craig Groeschel, who's our pastor, and he's written a number of books, but this one is actually called Divine Direction. And it was something that I really needed to hear when we were going through this at church, because we're burdened with choice. It's something, my generation and the next generation, we have every choice we could possibly want at our fingertips, Amazon and number of platforms that we can be on. And we go to the grocery store and there's 25 kinds of peanut butter, and it's just crazy. And so how do you cut down the noise of that choice and make the one that, if you're a person of faith, that God wants for your life, and if you're, not a person of faith, that's going to lead you in a direction that's going to be beneficial for your life. And that's the right decision. And we can paralyze ourselves all day and say, I don't know what the right decision is. I'm going to make the wrong one. But this was just a very pragmatic guide to listening and deciding and creating what the action is. And the couple of really big takeaways, and from a religious aspect, this is what God wants of us, but I think this is true for everybody. Understanding the who before the what. So who are you as a person? Who do you want to become is far more important than the what. And until you figure out who you are and who you want to be, how could you possibly make a decision that honors that? And then the who, so it's the who before do, the who before do and the why before what. And again, why? Understanding what is your reason. And while altruism is like this random sort of concept, it's really important. Understanding why we want to do things before we get into the what. So it's who before do and why before what. So understanding the who before you do what it is that you're going to do. And then the why before the what. Understanding what your reasoning is. Is it altruistic? And if it's not, then it's probably not the decision you should be making. Yeah. You want to do things for the right reason. And that's true no matter what your career is, no matter what your lifestyle is. If you're not doing it for the right reasons, then you're going down a path that's just going to circle back, or that's just going to end in heartache. And that's a hard concept for everybody. Again, we're so burdened with choice. So being able to do it from a place of, this is what I should be doing, and be confident in the choices we're making because of that process is invaluable. So the book is called Divine Direction. It's Craig Groeschel. I'll put a link to it on Facebook later, but it's definitely worth reading regardless of what your faith is, just for the process of getting to that decision making.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I do have one last question. I just wanted to remind everybody that's jumped on to say hi in the comments and to let us know that you're here, and also that to ask any questions. I just really have one more question that I didn't ask you the other night. But what do you see going forward for yourself as a planner?
That's a really good question, because it is something as a business owner that we ask ourselves all the time. And honestly, as a planner here in Kansas City, being pretty new, I definitely want to keep going through the experience of getting to know all the service partners that are out there for all of our amazing clients, getting to meet more couples that are getting married in Kansas City, and being able to serve a more diverse array of clients. One of the things that makes me super, super happy in my life is getting to work with couples that really want to showcase their personality through their wedding day. That to me is the most important thing. You're inviting guests to experience this event that you're hosting really for the experience of your guests. And what about your personality can we introduce to your guests? What can we show that's going to be personal? What can we show that's your personality? So getting to work with more and more couples that are ready to share that piece of themselves with their guests, that are ready to experience that and really make things, like I said, personal. So it's not so much a business goal as more a day-to-day, what I want to experience, for myself, for my clients, for their guests, and just continue to grow here in Kansas City.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jason had a question for you. He says, besides your amazing husband, Joe, and your dad, what are you most proud of in life?
That is a really challenging question to ask of yourself. And it's a good question. And I'd have to spend a little time thinking about that. But being a business owner is a really scary thing. It's a little bit like jumping off a cliff when you first start it without a safety net. You're used to having a business, where you're working for somebody else and an income. So that is a real source of pride for me, to be able to make a business out of this service that I get a lot of satisfaction from, that I enjoy doing, and taking that leap to do it is a pretty big source of pride. I mean, it's an accomplishment, and it's hard as a business owner. And you and I talked about this the other day, to feel that pride, because you feel like a failure almost every single day, because you feel like something is falling off the map. You feel like you're not holding everything together. You don't feel successful in the moment because you feel like all you're doing is working and treading water. And so being able to stand back and say, I created that wedding for this couple. They had a great time. This was something they enjoyed, puts that pride back into what we do and reignites us and reinvigorates us. And, it really is a point of pride. You have to stand back and say, I did this. I took this leap. I started this business. I took a lot of things on faith. Couples took me on faith. There's a number of couples that hired me, years ago when I was just starting to do this, that didn't know me from Adam, or trusted me as their friend, but didn't know me as a planner. And I can't thank those people enough. And most of them know who they are. But it was a huge leap of faith on their part too. So I'm very proud of that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ashley she says, what is your dream wedding to plan?
Oh, that's so hard. Currently I would love it if John Cena and Nikki Bella would come to me tomorrow and say, please plan my wedding. I think they're awesome. And they would be so much fun to incorporate, some of their experience as wrestlers. So in a broad sense, my dream wedding to plan would be something unique. I was just talking with somebody today about wanting to exhibit at Comic-Con next year. There is a whole group of people that love their fandoms, that are completely unashamed fans of whatever it is that makes their heart sing. So whether it's, Game of Thrones or Doctor Who or Guardians of the Galaxy, so much so that they get dressed up and have this experience with each other. I would love to see that translated into a wedding and into the experience of that occasion, because in a lot of ways it bonds people. Whatever you're a fan of, or sports, here in Kansas City, oh my gosh, the Royals, we have lots of couples that love to incorporate their love of the Royals there. So that all kind of is a dream to work with.
When I get ready to leave my house, you can jump on board. We're married in complete steampunk attire. So, okay. So Caitlin asks, what was your favorite wedding that you planned so far, and why?
That is also a tough question, because there's things that I love about every wedding that I plan. And I don't know if people always realize this, but as a planner, even though it's our career, every wedding is kind of personal to us. We spend, 18 months, 2 years working with a couple. Honestly, this wedding that I just planned this past weekend was so personal for me. They were friends of mine. They got married on the Susquehanna University campus, which is where, you know, a lot of us had met and had these formative experiences that translated into kind of who we are today. And seeing that very personal space for that couple. So, you know, Susquehanna University was a huge part of who they were as a couple, of who they were as individuals. They chose to get married there, and watching that transform into the experience of a wedding was an incredible thing to be a part of. And knowing that they trusted, you know, me with this experience and doing it from a little bit of a distance was such an experience. But there are things that I love and that I take away from every wedding that I plan and every couple that I meet. And I don't know that people always realize that we do. We think about them and we carry them with us. And, you know, years later, always wonder how they're doing, you know, how everything's going. And it's personal.
Yeah, very much so. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for being here. I really appreciate it. And for everyone else out there watching, please tune in next week on our Thursday Night Live. We will be here every Thursday at 6 o'clock. And we are also doing our Tuesday Instagram takeovers. So be sure to go over and follow us on Instagram. And of course, our next show, The Big Reveal, is coming up on August 20th. We hope you'll join us there. Tickets are available at bigrevealkc.com. And Megan, thanks again. It was nice talking with you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. I'll see you soon.
Night.
Bye.